Hello students, my name is Payal Roy and today we are going to learn about consignment. Okay, so this thing was not there up to class 12 of your syllabus. This thing is totally a new one for BCom. Now, for syllabus, we have theory and practical both. I mean to say that you can have theory questions coming from these topics as well as practical sums from the topics which will be discussed after we discuss this theory part. Okay, so first of all, there are definitions. The definitions will consist of consignment, consignor, consignee, pro forma invoice and account sales. Okay, next one will be difference between consignment and sales. Third one will be types of expenses and fourth one will be types of commission. So we will study all these things one by one. Let's start with the definition part. Okay, now for the definition of consignment, you need to know the process of consignment altogether. Okay, so the process of consignment means that if, say for example, one person is there, Mr. A, okay, and he is residing in Mumbai, okay, and he wants to sell his products all over India. He is concentrating his products in Mumbai market right now. Okay, so I have written here he is selling his products in Mumbai, right? He wants to extend his business all over India to a distant place. Say for example, he wants to sell his products to Kerala. Okay, now in Kerala, he cannot go by himself. If he goes to Kerala to sell his products, then what will happen to his business in Mumbai? Obviously, he will hire another person who will sell his product on behalf of Mr. A in Kerala market. Okay, say for example, one person is situated there who is Mr. B. Okay, now Mr. A will send all of his goods to Mr. B. Okay, and Mr. B will store the goods in his godown, or he will hire another godown to store the goods. Okay, now what will happen after this? Mr. B will spend some money on this. Like if he does not have any godown, he may have to incur some godown expenses like godown rent. Okay, he may have to incur some selling expense. Okay, or any other expense he has to incur, right, on this goods. Right, now after this, what will happen? He will try to sell the goods in the Kerala market. Okay, now what will he get in return of these goods? These goods will be going from godown to the purchaser. Okay, say this is Mr. C. Now what will happen? That Mr. B will sell the goods to Mr. C. He will sells the good. He sells the goods to Mr. C. And in return, Mr. C will give Mr. B sales return. Okay. Now this is also called returns on sales, right? It means he will give the money in return to Mr. B, for which he has got his goods. Okay, now Mr. B will send the money to Mr. A. Right? Now, as Mr. A gets the amount from Mr. B which was collected by him from Mr. C, Mr. A gives Mr. B some commission. Okay, so what is the basis of this commission? The commission is based on the goods sold by Mr. B to Mr. C on behalf of Mr. A. See, Mr. B is the agent who is hired by Mr. A. So Mr. B will have something in return of this service as an agent. So for that service, he gets the commission from Mr. A. Okay, and also whatever expenses he has incurred for this goods which actually belongs to Mr. A, those expenses will be reimbursed by Mr. A. Thus, in the process of consignment, there are actually few steps. Let us point those steps one by one. Okay. So, in the first step, obviously, the goods are sent by owner to the agent. Okay. This is the first and foremost step. Number 2 will be the agent will incur some expenses and store the goods. Okay. Now the third step, the agent will sell the goods and collect the proceeds. Okay. The fourth one, the proceeds will be sent to the owner by the agent and in return he will get commission and his expense will be reimbursed. Okay. Now this is the whole process of consignment. Now if we want to define the meaning of if we want to define the word consignment, it will be like it is an agreement between two parties. Okay, between party Mr. A and Mr. B, where one of them sends the goods to another, and that person who receives the goods will sell the goods to the ultimate customer, and in return of that service he will get some commission from the owner. Okay, so this is the whole process and this is the definition of consignment. In the books, in various books, you will get various types of definition of consignment, but this is the most easy to remember definition that I have given you, and this is the whole process. If you can remember this process, it will be easier for you to define all these terms. Okay, now let's define one by one. First of all, consignment is already defined, right? Now next one is consignor. Consignor is the owner of the goods. Who is the consignor here? Mr. A. Okay. Consignee. Consignee is the agent who is hired by the owner. Who is the agent here? Mr. B. Now, pro forma invoice. Pro forma invoice is a document which is made at the time of sending of goods. When Mr. A is sending goods to Mr. B, he will send pro forma invoice along with the goods. Okay, and what is this document? This document will consist of the details of the goods sent. Okay, the size, the shapes, any instruction to use those goods, any instruction to store those goods, and obviously the most important, quantity and rate. Okay, rate at which the owner is sending the goods to agent, and also rate at which agent will sell the goods to the ultimate customer. Okay, everything will be defined in detail in pro forma invoice. Now next one is account sales. What is account sales? Account sales is a document which is prepared by the agent, and he sends this document to the owner. After the sale is completed, I mean after Mr. C has made all the payment to Mr. B, Mr. B will send the payment to Mr. A, and at that time he will send the payment as well as this account sales. Account sales will consist of, account sales will be from Mr. B to Mr. A. Okay, account sales will comprise of goods sold, anything, details like amount at which, I mean rate at which the goods are sold, the quantity of goods, any discount which is given to the customer or not, any lag in payment or non-payment of the amount which should be received by the agent or not, everything in details will be here. This will be number 1. Number 2 will be commission to be received by Mr. B. Okay, the commission which is charged by Mr. B for this service of agent. Okay, and number 3, expense made by Mr. B for the goods of Mr. A. Okay, so these 3 things will be there in account sales, and it will be sent by Mr. B to Mr. A when the payment is sent by Mr. B to Mr. A. And that payment, which payment? That payment which is made by Mr. C to Mr. B. Okay, is that clear to you? If it is not so clear, it will be clear once we do the sums after this. Okay.